Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, "Neighbor had my brother's car towed on our property." I'm pretty pissed because this happened just a few hours ago. Anyway, to set the stage as players, me, my neighbor, who from here on in will be referred to as Nosy Old Bat, Knob for short. And yes, she's an entitled boomer, her husband, nice neighbor, my brother, mentioned rather than involved, and my grandmother. For some backstory, Knob and I both live on corner houses next to a busy street, which is relevant to the story. And oh man, is this lady bordering on our insane people level of crazy and nosy, because oh my god, she's nuts. I have lived in this house my entire life with my grandmother. I'm 28 and where I live it's hard to live on your own. Especially in the pandemic going on now and being temporarily out of work because finding work that's disabled accommodating is a pain. Especially when you have asthma and people are paranoid that an asthmatic has COVID. I get it, but it's tiring to explain that no, I don't have the virus. I have asthma and I can't infect anyone with my bad lungs. And Knob used to watch me for a little bit when I was 6 until my aunt could pick me up to babysit me. This apparently has given her the mindset that she can attempt to control my life and tattle on me to my grandmother, who nowadays knows when I have company and if a friend parks in the driveway. I call or text her to let her know and ask her to let me know when she'll be home so I can tell my friend they need to move their car unless grandma tells me that it's fine and she'll park on the side of the street, which she does occasionally even if there's no one in the driveway. A non-issue, right? Not to Knob. She's been known to get up in my business to go and knock on my door and demand to know who's there and if I'm doing the nasty with those friends. I'm asexual, so it's hilarious to me when people ask if I'm sleeping around, but it's infuriating when Knob asks this because she's nosy as hell and thinks she practically owns the neighborhood due to the aforementioned corner houses and acts as if this is an wah. It's not, thank everything. And she's in charge, as should we be because our house on the other corner. She makes calls on other people's, behaves constantly. We're no different. Anyway, dressing the stage aside, the story of the title. Alright, so, my little brother is a Marine and is currently deployed in Hawaii, and his car has been on our property for a while now because well, he can't come and drive it since he's in Hawaii. This apparently gives her the idea to call a tow truck because it hasn't been moved since he left it. It's not even a terrible looking car either, but I guess it pissed her off that it was sitting there due to it being a car she didn't know. My grandmother's now dead truck has been there longer, but Knob knows whose it is because she's seen her drive it. This happened between the time my grandmother and I left for Costco and the time we got home. Knob called the towing company to tow my brother's car because, in her batty old boomer logic after my grandmother went over to her house to confront her, it's been there for over 2 weeks and is just sitting there. On our property. Not hurting anything. He husband, nice neighbor, as crotchety as he can be, was unaware his wife did this because he likely wasn't home, so he'd said that he wasn't sure when he talked to us. So, now my grandmother has to call the police and the towing company to get the car back and she is rightfully furious, as am I, about this because it means another towing fee that was completely unnecessary. She can't even get it until tomorrow because nothing is even open. She was met with voicemails of the towing not even being open either, which was bizarre before 7 p.m. but whatever, I don't know the towing hours since we haven't had to deal with that before. I absolutely hate Knob with a seething and unholy passion because this isn't the first time she's attempted this garbage either. She's done this on other neighbors because she thinks she can police the neighborhood because of her corner house logic. I do not care how rude this makes me, but I will not be paying that towing fee and I will not be letting my grandmother pay it. Knob will be paying that because it was none of her business to be nosing her old face into things. I don't care if you're old, you do not stick your nose in someone else's business in life. Especially if the thing in question is on someone else's property. I will take this woman to court if she refuses to pay for this because she had no right to do this. I mean, what was my brother supposed to do? Be all like, oh hey guys, it's been 2 weeks, let me go back to my grandmother's and drive my car around the block. I'll be back on Monday with all the flights. Yeah, as if his CO would allow for that just because of Knob. I'll give updates if anything further happens, because yay. I'm furious and don't really care if the old woman doesn't want to pay it, she will or face court for her nosiness. Update. My cranky and tired butt marched over to her house, she was awake and outside, and ripped a new one into her about keeping her nose in her own shit and to pay for the towing, or I was gonna take it higher up and nail her for illegally having it towed. She's paying for the tow truck, reluctantly. I haven't slept, thanks insomnia, you're a pal. So I have no F's to give about being cordial or polite with this BS. Entitled people need to mind their own damn business and leave people alone. The next story is titled, Entitled Driver Decides to Run Me Out of the Bike Lane. The title is exactly how it sounds. I'm 21 female, currently in the emergency room, being treated after I was picked up from a thrift store. I hobbled over to with my electric bike. I could barely walk on my right leg, and the cashier called an ambulance for me. I was in the bike lane, riding my electric bike to the thrift store. I had some extra cash to spend, and I love thrifting. I once found a $250 artist easel for $10 at a Goodwill. I was being careful and enjoying the breeze in my hair, when I see to my left a black car cutting super close to me. The car went in the bike lane and started closing in on me. I swerved, and the bike got caught on something in the road. I slammed hard into the sidewalk. I admit I heard laughing as I fell, and not from me. From the damn car. The car sped off after I landed. Guys, I crashed hard in front of a house. There were people watching, and nobody came to help me. I got up and untangled myself from the bike, my right leg began throbbing. I used the bike for support and made it the extra block to the thrift store. 2 shoppers asked if I needed an ambulance, but I declined despite how much pain I was in. I was already having a hard day. Bless the cashier's soul who convinced me to let her call 911. Please, if you ever see a cyclist in the bike lane doing their thing, don't run us off the bike lane. Update. Nobody had video footage in the neighborhood this took place in. They were very aggressive towards me. The cops didn't take me seriously. They said because I have no evidence other than a small black Honda. I probably just hit the curb too hard and never actually got hit. Not even my dad and his girlfriend are taking my injury seriously. The literal day after I came back from the hospital, they get into a heated conversation, and chastised me for not cleaning the house and that it's my fault my dad and significant other have foot infections. My dad even said, I don't know how I failed as a parent, but I did. Guys, I literally got hit by a car. My dad tells everyone I hit the curb too hard. This is the 5th mental breakdown I've had in 2 weeks, and it seems only my significant other cares about my well-being. The next story is titled, Another Crazy Kevin Story from My Old Neighborhood. After an experience with one Kevin, 3 of my family, also neighbors, had another encounter with a Kevin and Karen, who were brother and sister. The 2 moved into the house that one of the Kevins, who troubled us, had once owned. To set the stage, small community of people all related and other longtime residents who were friends too. This is a small beach area with a mixture of cottages and beach homes that covered about 1 square mile of year-round and summer residential peoples. I lived on J Avenue, and around the corner, J Avenue turned into W Avenue. On my street there was only 2 homes until the lot across the street was bought and a raised ranch was built on it. It was a beautiful addition to the neighborhood, and the first owner was welcomed with my bringing a welcome gift. Unfortunately, they didn't stay due to a family tragedy and had to put the home on the market. A few years later an older man bought the place and gave it to his 2 children who both worked and lived there until. This is where the action began. I welcomed them with a welcome gift. No, thank you, just an, oh, okay, and shut the door after taking the gift. A short time later, within weeks, the complaints began. Now the roads were very narrow and barely wide enough to park 2 cars, and my road was not yet paved. A dusty dirt road all the way to the beach area, about 600 feet to the water. Their first complaint was my guest could not park in front of their house. They had a 3-car driveway, and the town owned 6 feet up into the lots on both sides of the road as right-of-way, to allow road widening, future sewer lines, etc. The cars were there for a sales party of XYZ products and I the host. The cars had to park across the street from me as my house was on the edge of a salt marsh and there was a 4-foot drop, so no one could park the side of my house. Out came Karen yelling, "Tell your people to get off my property or I'll call the police to ticket them." I politely explained that the city owned the part where the cars were parked, and it was the only place they could park, 4 cars. My other guest walked to my house as they were close enough to do so. She vehemently screamed, "We'll see about that, they are on my land, and I will not take any shit from anyone about it." A few minutes later, a policeman came to my house and said she was being disturbed by all the noise my partygoers were making. I asked the officer to come in to see my so-called party noise-making people. When he saw a bunch of ladies looking at my XYZ products, he smiled and said I will go talk to her. Nothing came of it, and I thought this would end the complaints. Wrong. Now comes the nastiness and endangering issue they caused. W Avenue is also a small road with 4 homes on it, and that road too was not wide enough for cars to pass each other. My dad lived on W Avenue and had a massive heart attack and was still recovering after being released several weeks earlier. Being I lived just around the corner to him, I took it as my job to look after him and would go over there to check up on him. My mom was working during those times, and due to the money situation, she needed to work. My father began driving again, and it was hard for him to back out of the dirt driveway. He had to back up into the area that was city right-of-way in order to get out of the driveway. He had a station wagon and my mom had a Buick. The vehicles were long, and the road was not yet made wide enough for swinging left or right to leave the driveway, hence the city property was a backup zone to turn in either direction. The ones who lived across from me went on a rampage against my dad for backing up on their property. The Kevin threw broken glass in the area where he knew my dad would be backing up into. I saw this and cleaned it up, as the neighbor next to my dad had 4 kids who played in that area. God forbid should one of them fall into that amount of broken glass. The Kevin saw me and got more broken glass as I was walking away and scattered it on that area again. I saw him and told him about my dad and that he needed that area to back into so he could turn in the direction he had go. I tried to be civil and explained the deal with the right of way. He looked at me, said nothing, and walked away. I picked up all the glass and called the city to tell them about it. One of the supervisors told me to inform the City Hall Road Safety Division and let them know, as well as notify the police department. A few days later, a policeman came to my door about the neighbor complaining I was trespassing and stealing things off the property. I was very miffed. I then told the officer to check with the supervisor on the highway division about the complaint I made, as well as the road safety division. I proceeded to tell him about the people not wanting my guest to park across the street in front of their property. The policeman went to the door of the Kevin and Karen and rang the bell. She would not open it. I saw her peeking out from between the blinds in the window. The officer then left without having a word with Karen. All was quiet for about 2 weeks, and then I was taken aback by what I saw as I came home from shopping. There were huge boulders, and I mean huge, lining the roadway across from my dad's house. I was furious. I drove around the curve to my street and parked my station wagon across from their house so as to make it unable for them to leave their driveway unless they backed up onto the lawn. I was directly in front of my own house, not where I would have been, so as to allow them access to their driveway. I called the mayor's office and spoke with a representative on the road safety issues. "Don't worry," said the supervisor, "we'll take care of that situation." My dad had to park in front of his house, which made it difficult for my aunt, who also lived next to my dad, to pass by, and me, my husband, and my next-door neighbor. My aunt had a war of words with the 2 belligerent neighbors, as did the family with 4 kids. 2 days later, lo and behold, they're coming onto the street, was a backhoe, and the operator proceeded to remove the 3 boulders that blocked my dad's access to the area he needed to back up into. Kevin and Karen received a citation to appear in court for throwing trash onto city property, causing a hazardous condition, putting boulders on city property in such a way as to cause loss of use to utility and plow trucks. They moved out within 6 months. The last story is titled, "My Seat is Not Meant to Be Your Support." I was originally writing this as a comment for another post, but then I remembered this lovely sub exists and I thought I would share with you all. I find myself taking this petty revenge quite frequently, and the whole situation could be avoided if the people involved were slightly more courteous or had respect for those around them. For those of you who fly frequently, this may be an all too familiar situation. Now, this usually happens when the person behind you or someone in their row needs to use the bathroom mid-flight. People have started using the back of my seat as a method to pull themselves up out of their chair as opposed to using their own armrests. They usually pull the seat back 3 to 4 inches due to their leverage and let it go once they are standing. If you're the one in the chair in front of them, this provides you with the sudden unpleasant feeling of your chair unexpectedly rocketing back, followed by a quick reversal launching you forward. A real dick move. 95% of time, the person who does this either does not apologize or is oblivious to their actions. Cue petty revenge. When this happens to me now, I bide my time, waiting for the person's return. Upon their return but before they sit, I make sure the button that reclines the seat is fully pressed in. The person generally expects the seat is going to provide that same resistance they used to get out of their seat in the first place. Sorry friend, that resistance is gone. Hearing that sweet, shocked gasp as fall hard into their seat has been one of the new pleasures I've found in flying. Edit. I see a few of you talking about how you think a disability, injury entitles you to being rude. Let me assure you, it does not. A simple apology for an oversight would be sufficient to make me, and most people, think nothing of this. If apologizing for hassling someone else is beneath you, then we will no longer care about your circumstances. If this still hasn't convinced you, let's assume I'm the one with a bad back, neck injury made worse by your actions of using my seat back. Does your injury make mine irrelevant? Thank you for listening.